All right. Hello, friends. Welcome to the February WiscWeb Lunch and Learn. Um, the agenda is pretty straightforward today. We're going to talk about Gutenberg. We're going to talk about the block editor and um, where the current state of the UW theme is. Touch on a few things that have been coming up throughout user testing, both in the unmoderated that a number of you are engaging in, as well as the user interviews and the moderated user testing that Ketter and I have been doing over the past couple of weeks, which has been very beneficial to us because we've had a nice wide range of skill levels and experience with using WordPress, and it's been nice to see that there are things that are not obvious to everyone. And there are definitely things that we're going to need to make sure that we point out and touch on. And we'll touch on a few of those today, but it's really nice to see the appreciation is there. It's going to take a little bit to understand what all needs to happen for that. Um, Really briefly, we are in the midst of our user testing, and I'm going to drop in the link there to request a site if you haven't already. The testing goes through next Friday at 5 p.m. Next Friday. We will shut off all access to those user testing sites. So you still have an opportunity to join in. At a certain point, we will stop accepting those as well, but we're still a week out, so you know, give it a shot. Go ahead and tinker from there. The feedback that we've been getting is exceptionally helpful because, like I said, it's going to influence the conversation today. It's going to influence the training and the documentation, and honestly, just a lot of the conversation that we're going to be having over the next 6, 7 months as we prepare for hopefully a fall release. Kind of touching on that timeline idea, we're still hoping for that sort of fall, late-ish fall release time. That all depends upon how things come together after this user testing, how things come together with some of the more advanced blocks that we're working on, and just making sure that we're ready from a server standpoint, from a team standpoint, and from the theme standpoint. So we're looking at fall still, but it's it it's still a moving target. Da, 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 da. Okay, so one thing that I did want to touch on that came up in one of the chats that we were having was the migration, the idea of the migration, and I wanted to make sure that we touched on what the concept of a migration is going to be to us as a team and what it's going to mean for you when we get there. So first off, there is no tool yet for migrating. It is something that we're going to work on over the coming months, but there is nothing there yet. We've tested out a couple of things that have worked, but we're still looking for something that's just going to make this as seamless and easy a process as possible. Um, but but just be aware of the fact that we're not going to turn on the theme on day one and expect everyone to be migrated on day three. That's just not a reality. We're going to turn the theme on. We are going to encourage people to start the migration process. We're we will get to a point where we'll have to more than suggest. We will move people if you just aren't engaging with us. But this isn't like when we moved from open text into WordPress, for those of you who were around for that. It's not like we had to be done and have everything turned off at a certain point. We're not at that. We're going to turn on the theme. We're going to let people decide to start migrating. We're going to be there to help you throughout that process. We're going to be there for content strategy, accessibility, using the migration tools, all of that stuff. We're going to be there to help you out. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're going to be on an island where you're not. We as a team are going to be there to help you out and make sure that um, you're not just, I guess, just stressing out about getting something done in a short amount of time when you have more time than you may realize there. I'm going to drop a few more important links into the chat. I hope these format nicely. They formatted okay. There's just a few links in there. The first one is our Gutenberg transition site, just kind of talking about some of the stuff that we have been talking about for several months now. There's also the Gutenberg migration page from the WiscWeb side of things. Again, just talking about the process of what we're going to be going through and where we're at right now. And then lastly, again, we're in the midst of the user testing, but once the user testing is done, you still have access to the Gutenberg, or I'm sorry, the WordPress block editor playground site, essentially their sandbox site. So even though it won't be the UW theme, you can still get comfortable with using the blocks and using some of the things that I'm going to touch on today. So that being said, um, if there are any questions, go ahead and hop in and ask them or drop them in the chat, and Jenna and the team will answer, and I'll answer as I see them. But let's go ahead and share the old screen, and let's talk a little bit about some of this stuff that I'm going to be doing. Let's move some things around because, why not? Okay. So let's touch a little bit on the block editor itself. I'm just going to create a new page. And let's just say, we'll call it Matt's testing page. One of the things again that I want people to be aware of is there's a lot going on. There's not many options up here, yet there's a lot going on in those few options there. So I'm going to start off with just kind of touching on again what you're seeing in this base page editing layout. So first off, over here on the left, you have your block inserter. The block inserter lets you get to several different things, including the blocks themselves, patterns that exist, and I'll come back around to the patterns idea again, and then access to your media library, just to kind of quickly grab and drag images in if you see so. If you so desire, not if you see so. I don't know what my brain was thinking right there. The other thing, oh, and I'll come back to that. The other one up here that I want people to be very aware of, because I can't tell you how much this has played into our user testing already in the few that we've had, is this document overview option right over here, and specifically the list view. And we'll come back to this when I start tinkering around with some things. But the ability on the fly to click and choose the particular blocks, groups that you want to work with, to move around, those are very important for you to be able to see in a singular view right here and be able to manipulate. So it's very important for that particular thing there. Up here in the upper right, lots of different options for saving and previewing. Obviously, the save draft will show up right here. These are your view options right here, your preview options. This one, again, it's new. I don't particularly care for it because I prefer to see what my page is going to look like in the preview options. But this is just one way to kind of zoom out and see the patterns that you are using in a, I guess, a 10,000 foot view looking down at it kind of thing. Again, I'm not super fond of it, but it's there if you do make use of it. Let me come back to the settings one. You have your publish options right here, and then you have some additional options right over here. And I'll come back over to this in a second here, but specifically out of this one, you can get access to the code editor as well as your own block editor preferences. And again, I'll come back to that one there, but you can get to the code if you ever want to. Most of you exist in a world where you're not going to want to because you're using WordPress and you don't want to worry about hand coding anything. But if you ever wanted to go in and take a look at the code, there it is. Coming back to this right here, the settings shelf or drawer. I've referred to it as both the settings shelf and the settings drawer. I don't know, whatever works best for you. This little flyout thing right here is going to be exceptionally important for you as you are manipulating the layouts, the content, the formatting, the look and feel for all of these types of things that you're going to want to be using there. There are options within the settings area for you to also manipulate, and we'll come back around to that when I'm tinkering around with some blocks here. But again, I just want to make sure that people are aware of what this layout is like and understand that there are many options in few areas. Lastly, the one that we don't see, let me get out of code editor because I didn't want to be in that. There we go. Okay. Lastly, the other option that I want people to be aware of, donuts, is when you have clicked on or selected one of the blocks that you're working with, there's also a toolbar that allows you to manipulate some of the formatting options as well. So a lot of different options for you to make use of in formatting your content, laying your content out, and um, making use of it. All right, let me delete this real quick. Again, your options right here. You have some quick options to tinker with. So let me delete that guy right there. All right. So essentially what I was going to demo today is I was going to start to build out one of the user testing pages that we have been using. So coming back over to here, just making sure I have everything actually enabled so that I can use it. Okay. All right. So first things first, I want to create a hero area. So one of the things that I want people to also get comfortable with is using search, because I'm just going to type in hero or banner. Um, the this particular functionality right here, this is something that we would love to hear feedback from you all on, because as Ketter and I have been doing some of this user testing, the two of us have also been searching for things as we've been tinkering. And we have found that some of the keywords that we would assume would be assigned to some of the patterns and blocks aren't actually set yet. So we're going to make recommendations for adding additional keywords so that they come up in this search. But that's something that we want to hear from you. Did you search for something and not find it as you were expecting? Again, that'll help us to help you. All right. So let's see. I have a number of different banners up here. I'm going to choose. Um, I'm going to go with the light one instead. So I'm just going to drag it right out onto here, and there is that pattern right there. So one of the things that came up during our user testing that I liked how they got there, and she isn't here, so I will call her out because I did like the way that she was wording it. But Carolyn Wolf was one of our user testers, and she was kind of circling around this idea of the basis of how you are building your content. We have patterns that we are pre-designing for you, but the patterns are simply based upon all of these blocks that exist right here. We're not doing anything special in here. We're just grouping them together in a way that makes it easy for you. But the blocks themselves, they are the basis of everything that you are building right there. So don't be overwhelmed by the fact that like I'm looking at this pattern and I'm like, how could I possibly do this? You can. It's just blocks. And if you've watched any of the previous videos that I've done, you've seen me without the UW theme create these kind of things on the fly. So don't ever be overwhelmed by the fact that like, oh, I'm either stuck using a pattern or I've used a pattern, but I want to do something different with that pattern. So you'll see how I manipulate that right now, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that concept. Blocks are the basis for everything that you're going to do. I'll show you how to group blocks together, but you take those blocks and you work with them and you tinker with them and you get comfortable with them, and then suddenly you're making layouts and you've got yourself a nice looking page because you've decided to, do columns and different color schemes and things like that. So, all right, back
Ma-
over to this. Oh,
Just a
sorry, go ahead.
quick question that came in through the chat. Can you
Yep.
clarify what you mean by pattern?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Linda. So a block is the individual item. I have a heading block. I have an image block. I have a buttons block somewhere down in here, buttons block. So this right here is is those three blocks by themselves. The heading, the button, and then I have an image. We've taken those three blocks and combined them together into a group, into a cover block, and then subsequently grouped them together. And then from that group, the team designed a pattern that is a predefined, formatted, layouted, boy, that was a terrible word to say, layout that you can then apply to your page. It's already predefined for you. So the pattern is something that is a pre-designed, predefined piece of content that you can subsequently grab and just use on your page if you want to. So again, the pattern is the group of blocks together. Yes, Alan, it is. I mean, that's kind of what I was going at is the blocks are what essentially are creating all of this stuff grouped together to be grouped and used from there. Christina, yes, these patterns right here are all going to be a part of the UW theme as it is released, and so um, yeah, they'll be there. I'm not going to get into it today, but you can also build your own patterns that you find that you're using over and over again. I'll show you how to do that in a future lunch and learn because again, I'm already kind of I talk too much, guys. I'm sorry. I like talking. All right. So I've got this pattern here. If I click on this cover block, you'll see right there, you'll notice I get a toolbar right up here. I can change this image if I wanted to. I can open by clicking on the replace right here. I could also change where the text and the content is appearing if I wanted to. So if I wanted the woman in the image to be more apparent, I can move everything over here to the left. If I wanted the art to be more apparent, I can move everything over to the right and so on. I'm going to move everything over here to the lower left just because I feel like it. And then I can click on replace to change the image. Uh, boy, do I not have a great image. Let's go with this one right here. Alt text. Just add some alt text, please. I'm not going to go into it right now, but you guys have heard me bang the drum many times for this. Okay, so now I've got this image right here, and you'll notice that it's not very well centered. So this is where I'm going to go over here to my settings shelf, and you'll notice that there's a focal point option right here in this image. And I can change that focal point up and make the people be more obvious there. Maybe. Yep. Okay. I can also expand this if I wanted to, if I wanted to give a little more room for it. There we go. All right. I can edit these buttons. And then I've updated those buttons right there. Thank you, Grammar. And then to edit or add links, well, obviously I already have a link in here, so I don't need to click on that icon, but I can edit the link right here and go to, let's say, I could send that link to science.wisc.edu. Okay, well, I've got to start. So let's save draft. Let's preview it. So I'm going to do preview a new tab. And there it is. Nothing exciting. Just a couple of different things there. However, there's one thing to note about this that I want to make sure people are aware of is it still has my title up here and it has the breadcrumbs up here. And one of the things that we have done is we have added in the page settings. So I just clicked off of this block. If you'll notice, I just clicked right up here. I get back to the page settings. Down here in the page settings, you have the option to hide page title and the breadcrumbs. And so now I will save that draft again. I will do a refresh, and there we go. Now I have more of a hero image in there. Now, obviously, there's some spacing right here because I would have a menu up here. But there you go. I just added that. All right, that's cool. What do
Matt,
we want to add?
before
Go
you
ahead.
move on, can you show like that you would need to create your own H1 then and to to supplement?
I could, if you so desire. All right, there we go. And then if I save that, do a little bit of a refresh. There we go. They're sort of together, Hannah. I believe they exist together. I guess that's feedback that Ketter's in the meeting, so I will say, hey Ketter, take some notes.
I think,
um,
Matt, this might be referring to when you're hiding the page title
yeah,
in the page settings. I don't know if that's something you want to show.
I did
You're
already.
doing that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's okay.
Sorry about that.
But the question is, could you add the breadcrumbs but keep a page title up top?
Oh, got it. Got it. Got it.
I can't remember. I think there's an option. Apologies, I don't remember where everything is. I think there's an option to turn off breadcrumbs across the
Yeah, so we're currently
site.
working on some of the site-wide settings that you all currently
Yeah.
have in the customizer. This will be in a new area called the settings UI, but generally features like that will be there. It would be on a site-wide basis though, so you wouldn't be able to choose on this page like I do want to show, I don't. It would be a setting you'd have to toggle at the site level.
Yep.
Um, I'm
Let's
just
see.
gonna look.
I'm just gonna go back up, see the things. To answer Carl's, yeah, to Andrea just answered it. If it's the homepage, the site title, so this becomes the H1. If it's if it's a sub page, you would want to add another H1 to become the page title value there. Can I show how to hide the header again? Sure thing. If you click off of all of your content here and you get to the settings and you have the page settings right here, there is now a little toggle down here in page title settings that allows you to turn that on and off.
There was a question way back up when we were talking about patterns. Will we be able to share our own patterns in some way with others? It sounds like what they're asking for is like a cross site. And I think this is something that we haven't had a chance to look into too deeply, but just sharing that the patterns that we're creating here have been vetted for accessibility and also alignment with the campus brand. I don't know how much we'll be allowing the sharing of patterns that people create broadly just because there could be spreading something that is not accessible, um, or it doesn't align with the campus brand. We honestly haven't explored that yet.
Yeah,
But just noting that we have tested, you can copy like a group of blocks from one site and paste it into another, and it holds those blocks pretty well across sites. So if you had multiple sites and you're like, I really like this pattern here, you can copy a grouping of blocks and paste it into another site, and then you could just create that pattern there very easily.
yeah. Um, Let me get back out of here real quick. Let me go back in here. Lots of great questions. You guys are great. I love you. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. I'm gonna come back around to adding background. How would I add a new background image behind that welcome text? If you mean this one right here, that's one of the blocks that you would have to work with because there's a block called the cover block, and the cover block is essentially this. It is an image with text on top of it. And it is one of the blocks that you can search for and find. And again, you'll see when I search for cover, all of our banners come up because they are cover blocks as well. Oh boy, lots of great stuff in here. I'm not gonna be able to keep everything because I have a list, I have a plan, folks. You're
I
great. I
would say
gotta get through it.
keep going, Matt, and I'll try to keep track.
Yeah, it's okay though, because again, these questions will help influence future lunch and learns because we can keep demoing things and stuff like that. Okay, one of the things about this this welcome area is I kind of want to make it a little bit more styled. So what I can do is maybe below here, I might want to add, let's see, let's add a button. And then maybe another button next to it. Whoops. 333, okay. And then now what I can do is I'm going to take these buttons and my welcome area, and I'm gonna hold down my shift key, and I'm gonna select here, hold down shift, select all of them, and then I'm going to go up here to the vertical ellipsis right here, and then I'm going to group them. Because now what I can do is I can manipulate those together. And there are lots of different ways to do this. I'm doing it just because my brain is working the way that it works, that I'm going to do this kind of on the fly. But I'm going to just grab these buttons and move them up here. So I don't really need this button right here. So I'll delete these buttons out. And so now I have these three here. And so get rid of this button block as well. Again, notice I'm using the menus to delete things on the fly. So let's see. I kind of want to center these. So let's center those buttons. And I kind of want to make this group the full width of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and select the group over here. Again, notice I can select the group in the list view, and then I get the toolbar for the group. And now I have this align option, and I'm going to go full width. And so you can't see it just yet, but now what I can do is with the group selected, I can go over here to my settings for the group block right here. And I'm going to change the background color to be the dark red. And now I've got that selected. And then obviously I've got some more things I need to work on with this. So let's go back and select the group. And then let's go back into the styles area right here, the half circle. And now what I can do is I can tinker with the padding and the margin. This is one that we have noticed that folks are struggling with is you'll notice there's this gap between the hero block and my welcome block. So I can get rid of the margin, even though it looks like it's 0 there already, you can manipulate that by grabbing it and dragging this around. So if I wanted more, I could go bigger, but I don't want more, I want none. So I'm going to drag it over to make sure that it says none. And now this block is feeding into this block right here. And then I can go back up to the group and let's add a little more padding maybe on the bottom and the top, just so it's the red is up against it, but not my text. Let's see here. And then obviously the buttons, I'm going to click on each individual button, change it to the white button so that it stands out a little bit more in here. I did see a question also about the H1 and H2 and all that jazz. This is an H2. It's the default because the H1 is saved. I'm sorry, it is set for the page title value. So you can't add additional H1s to the page. You shouldn't add additional H1s to the page. But one of the cool things about the theme that we do have is, even though this is an H2 and from an accessibility standpoint, it would still read as an H2. I can go over here into my settings, into my block settings, and I could change the size. And I could make it be something much larger to stand out, but still maintain the accessibility of it being an H2. And so I kind of might want to make this wider width. There we go. And then let's center it as well. There we go. And I could add some context to that. Okay, fine. Thank you, Andrea. Okay. All right, let's see here. Got some things going on. All right, again, I've got my group of blocks over here that I can manipulate. I can add some more stuff down here. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. You show that on mobile and tablet too. Sure. So let me save draft. Let's really quick preview on mobile. Nah, looks all right. I might make some different decisions to make it look a little bit better on the mobile aspect. But then there's tablet. Looks better on the tablet view there. And then desktop. And then I can go back over to my page and refresh it there. And there you can see I have. Yeah, I can set that up. Okay. Let's touch on a few more things here. Let me scroll on down. Okay. So now let's add, let's do another group block, but I'm going to start. Let me just collapse this here. And let me go back over to my blocks here. And I'm going to add another heading block. And let's call this, let's call it resources. And then I'll hit enter. And then I'm going to create you'll notice right here in there, there's a group of links block. So I'm going to drag that in. And one of the things that I keep forgetting is when you add a group of links block, you do have the option to display multiple columns. And so what I can do now is I can make this particular group of link blocks. Again, I'm going to go to my list view. I'm going to widen that out so that it fills a little bit more space there. And then one of the things that I can do is I can click here. I can click on one of these, click in the vertical ellipsis and duplicate. Same deal here, duplicate. So now I've got my blocks there. I'm going to leave this as is. I'm going to center it. But another thing that we are adding to the theme is these predefined styles. So you'll notice this is default, but if I click on heading bar, now I get that handy dandy horizontal red line above it that allows me to style it a little bit more and make it stand out a little bit more. And so now we go, I don't know, registration, people, stuff, algebra, quantum physics. That's not how you spell physics. Serious stuff. Okay. There, I've added some links there. Let's see. I can add links, obviously. I'm just going to put hashes in so that they look somewhat linky there. But again, let me save that draft and let's take a look at what we've got now. Oh, they're linked, right? Oh, ha. Here's something that I forgot about doing. Again, some things you learn. Hit enter. When you add a link, make sure you hit enter. Don't click out of it. Hit enter. So let me do that real quick here. All right. Save it. Refresh it. There it is. So we've styled that group of links concept a little bit differently now. So make this stand out. Maybe just a little bit more. There we go. Save that draft. Okay. All right. Let's go on down the line. I'm trying to think. Let me look at my notes quick. Showed you that difference between blocks and patterns. I hope that makes sense. I hope being able to search for the things makes sense. Changing the settings, the paddings, the margins. Oh, the borders. You could add borders around some things if you were feeling bordery. I don't want that as there, so I'm actually going to add these two, and I'm going to group these two. There we go. So now these are grouped together as well. Trying to think of anything else to show you in this particular thing right here. Oh, borders I was touching on. Okay. If I go here, I can set a border. Let's go black. And there we go. Maybe put a little bit of padding around that just so it stands out a little bit. There we go. Now the border is not bunching up against that. Da, 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 da. Yeah, there you go. I did that. Oh, let's see here. Da, 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 da. I talked about creating a section and changing the background colors. All right, let's go look at next list of things. Full width, viewing patterns. Oh, images. We did see uh someone with some feedback that there was an issue with uploading images to the media library. I just want to touch on the media library hasn't changed for WordPress. The only thing that has really changed for WordPress is the block editor. That's the biggest difference. Otherwise, it's WordPress. You have your pages list, your posts list, and then, here's the media library. Obviously, I've uploaded a few things to the media library, but like I could upload, I probably don't have anything exciting in my folders. Let's see. Here, you all can meet. So there, I just dragged and dropped. And then there you go. There's the media library. So let me go back to my pages. Go back to my testing page. Go down to here. Add an image, maybe a media and text. I'll get that one. Actually, I'm gonna find a good pattern. So let's do banner. And I'm going to grab this one right here, drop that pattern in. Okay, click off of there, go to my list view. Da, 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 let me replace this image, open media library. And you all get to meet the delightful Mr. Watson, my brand new 10-week-old puppy. There we go. And that's that. So I just added a little cover block. I'm sorry, not cover block, but just a little banner area with a block. So that's that. Let's see. Let's see. Creating the full width banner we touched on. Hiding the page title we touched on. Wrapping text around an image needs a group block. This one I might struggle with just because of the fact that I don't know that I've done it yet. But let's go ahead and let's
Yeah,
go.
it's a weird image alignment thing that came
Yeah.
up in feedback already. If you
So I'll
add
do
like
it
an
here.
image and you want it to be like left aligned and the text to wrap around it, you do need to wrap that in a group block before
Okay.
you're going to be able to
Yeah. So
get
then if
that
I
to work.
do, let's see. All right. So then if we go here, I will grab my image and my paragraph block and I will group them. And you'll notice I get the toolbar here to group them together. So I will group them. And then let's see, how do I go about doing this? Would I change it to a different group
Yeah,
block?
so try clicking on the image then,
Mm-hmm.
and then clicking on, it's like kind of like a hamburger menu, but with a thicker line.
This guy? No.
Oh, that's not it. I thought, go ahead and, yeah, there you go. Image line left. And then do you also need to put it in a 2-column layout? Andrea, do you know?
The image might be too large.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, that
Oh,
worked
yeah,
for
it
me
is.
last time.
Oh,
There you
it's
go.
funny. It's
Thank
funny
you.
too. This is another thing. Yeah, it's fine. This is another thing that I've noticed, and I've struggled with it because obviously what I'm doing is working because, oh, there's my text wrapped on the right side. Or I could take this paragraph and drag it above. And now, again, I'd have to do image align right. And same deal. Hey, why aren't you doing that? Oh, duh. There. I keep the image above. So alignment options there. But one of the things that I have noticed is your settings shelf and your pattern slash block inserter take up room. So when you get rid of those, you start to get more room to actually see things laying out in there. So, okay. So that's that. Yeah. Removing margin between blocks, centering an image, adding alt text. Let's go to the settings. What I showed this in previous ones, but if you click on an image that you've added, you in the settings area, you get the alt text for it right there. So oh, and people this I'll give this one too. Here's creating alternative text. Oh, it's just describing what's in the image, giving people giving someone who cannot see the image the gist of the image. Linda, yes, when you add images to the media library, I would automatically do it, and it would carry over to the image. This is capturing one of those things of like uh, one of the questions that has come up in the past with the current version of the UW theme is I've adding alt text on the fly because it once you've added an image to a page, it's on the page, it's coded onto the page, so it's disconnected a little bit from the media library, so you have to update it in the media library and in the page itself. But if you did it first in the media library and then use the image, it would scale down, or it would transfer down to the page that it's on there. So media width, we got to see plenty of watts in there. Yep. Okay. Alt text columns in the group of links block. Okay, let's do some columns. So, one thing that I can do on the fly is bother. I can go over, let's see, you can choose a type of grouping from your uh, block editor. So I have columns and I have table. Again, I just did a column search and I can do like, oh, I can drag this in. Uh-oh. How does one get around this, Andrea?
Yeah, it's a great way to clear a float at the moment.
Oh,
Yeah, you could add a spacer below it.
I could add a spacer below it. You are correct.
Good feedback though. We could look into this.
Yeah, let me add. So I'm gonna click on the group. I'm gonna click on my vertical ellipses. I'm gonna add after, and then I'm gonna do spacer. And so a spacer is a type of block that allows you to create sort of like an empty content area. And now that helps me out a little bit. Let's tighten that up just a bit. There we go. That helps me out a little bit now. So why has it got the blue border? Is that just here? That better be just here. Yeah, okay. It's just showing that it was the spacer. All right. That's not what I wanted. Let's delete that. Let's go here. Let's add after, and let's just type in column. So I'm going to do columns. I've had this question come in from someone. I don't really, I'm not sure how to answer the question, but I'm gonna kind of walk through how I would work with columns. So I can add a column here, and once I add the columns group, um, I can add the the layout of it. So I might want to go, let's go 50-50 right here. And so now I have the two columns. And so on this side, maybe I add a paragraph, and we go and grab some handy dandy lorem ipsum, and we drop that in. And then on this side, maybe I choose an image. So media library, the old rabbit. Center, there we go. And then if I wanted to add additional columns, I just could go, I could duplicate, I guess. If I click on the columns here, you'll notice it is set to 2. I do have the ability to increase my columns if I want. So this is something that people have asked for in the past, is this ability to do that. Boy, there we go. We have the 3-column layout, the 2-column layout, and the 1-column layout. Now you can go more columns. More does not always mean better, because remember, you are still working within the confines of the layout itself. And so be cautious with your columnar layouts, because all of a sudden I want 5 columns because I've got so much I want to tell you. That's where we get into content strategy of, if you've got so much to tell me in 5 columns, maybe those things should be better served as pages by themselves, and then create a little bit of a call to action area to link to those pages with, maybe you saw me use the card layout, and maybe I'll use these, keep it simple, and then link to those 5 columns worth of good content that you have there. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. 2 more things that I want to touch on. We're at 12:52. I'm going to publish this just so it exists. Publish is the same process as always. I click on publish. I click on publish here. It's alive. So now it exists. And now what I can do is, if I get out of here, one thing you'll notice is, to get out of a page editor view, you have to click on your little WordPress icon up here. And that gets me back to, let's say, pages. Now what I can do is I can go to appearance and menus. Let's just call it home. Let's call it main menu. Let's be consistent. It will be the main menu. Menus are the same regardless. So I'll create the menu, and then I will add the various options over here. Don't need home. There we go. Save the menu. Habooba. And there's the menu right there. Works the same as always. And then last thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll kind of look at questions and we can kind of just bounce around some thoughts here. One of the things that Keter stumbled across, and it is a question that came up during our user testing, is if I'm looking at the blocks over here, the block inserter, there are a lot of blocks in here. There are a lot of blocks that you're not going to be using, but you're going to find yourself using a number of blocks on a regular basis. For example, I know for certain the heading block, the paragraph block, and the image block are three that are going to be used a lot. So instead of having to scroll around to find them, one of the things that you can do is you can go over here to your options, your vertical ellipsis up here. You can go down to preferences, and then in preferences, I can click on blocks, and then I can click on show most used blocks. And so now what will happen is the most used will be at the top right here. And so as you start to get more comfortable and familiar with some blocks, the ones that you use most often will now start to filter up to the top there. And this was direct user testing feedback that Ketter looked into, and she pointed that out to me, and that's a great find.
Hey, Matt, while you're in
Yep.
this page, can you select that first pattern and look at the list view so that you have the groups there? Can you grab like the next grouping
Sure.
there? And then go to visibility settings.
Yep. Hang on a
Oops.
second. I'm going to rename this.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah. All right. Visibility settings.
On the right-hand side in the right sidebar, it's towards the bottom. Oh, sorry. Click click back.
in the settings area.
Yep.
Got it.
Visibility settings and
Thank
then
you.
hide group. So this was a question that came up is like, can you hide a block? You got to wrap it in a group block and then you hide that whole group. But that's how you do it. So you need to make sure the whole group is selected, and then in that sort of gear icon on the right-hand sidebar, go down to visibility settings. Other things that came up. Um, did you show the margin thing, Matt? I might have missed
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I did.
Okay.
So like if you click on it and you go to the styles right here, you have the ability to change the padding as well as the margins between
A-
things.
And then can you show like the cover block? Because I think that we've had several questions about like, well, what if I wanted to create like a banner, but I didn't want to use a pattern? Can you show like how you can add a cover block and then set that to be like full width?
Sorry, had a puppy who was trying to escape the room and I needed to grab him. Okay. Um, all right, so how to set something to full width, you mean?
Yeah, so maybe like a cover block.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll take this one right here. The banner is a cover block. And so um it's set to full width. I could set it to wide width so it's a little bit tighter. None, so it's just like this, or I can go back to full width right there and expand it out to there. So again, different layout options. Border flumes. Where was that setting? Vanessa, the border is in, if I go to the group over here on the left side, and then I go into the styles settings right over here, the border is one of the options down here. Yep, they do have to be grouped, yeah.
Since we just have 3 minutes left, I wanted to quickly just review some of the things that are in development that aren't available for testing yet, because that did come up. So for those of you who've been trying to test, and we can try to add this to the frequently asked questions on the instructions, but who've been trying to test like back staff, we're referring to that as the people block in the future, but generally that's in development right now. We're really close to having it ready, but it is not in this user testing environment. So if you're trying to create people and you were confused, that is one of those things that is still in development. And you would have the ability to kind of add a listing to a page just like you do now, which shows all of your fact staff members. Other things that we've had questions about, publications is not actually part of the theme. That's actually a plugin that WiscWeb created because we had enough requests for it. Same with UW events. So if you're looking for publications in UW events, those are not in this version yet. Those are things that we're considering, but we have not made any decisions on. Document listing is another one we haven't gotten to yet. Today.Whisk is another feature that is currently in development, almost ready, but it's not quite there. Let me know, Andrea Ketter, if there's any others that you can think of. Oh, image carousel is another one, or carousels in general. We're currently doing discovery on that. So reusable content should be accommodated in Gutenberg. Andrea, if you're comfortable touching on that, just kind of like how that works in the Gutenberg state.
I think that the synced patterns will be able to meet the need of reusable content, and that might take some advanced training to get there. But I think Gutenberg out of the box will resolve that need.
Thank you. And tabs, good call, Andrea. Tabs are another thing that we're currently working on. Will there be a second beta test later? You know, we haven't discussed that, but something we have discussed is doing like smaller deep dives, maybe into a specific feature like FactStaff. So it might not be a full user testing of all the things, but it might be like, hey, we built this really big thing. We want to do some user testing on it. There was a question about having multiple users test. If we have 2 users that need to test, do they need to each register? Yes. We really had a lot of high interest in user testing, and we opted to not spend time on adding new users to the site because we had limited time to accommodate all of the things that we needed to prepare. So if you have multiple users that need to test, we recommend getting into a meeting, each having their own user testing site that they request, and or you can have one person request and share your screen. So that could be like an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting, but just kind of sharing what you're doing as you go is the recommendation for that.
Yep, we are at 1 o'clock, so if you have to bail, go ahead and bail.
Yeah. I'm just reading through, there's a longer one that came
I know.
in. Just noting, yes, so we will take a look, Joel. Thank you for also sending an email on that, but Joel just sent along a couple of questions on things that are interesting features to know whether or not they will be accommodated in Gutenberg. Thank you. Great questions today. We tried to keep up. If there's anything that we didn't catch, let us know.
Yeah. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here.
Here's
All
the
right.
perk of staying on the line. You get to see Watson.
Hello.
Watson.
There's what.
Woo! Because his
Look.
name starts with a W, I just assume he's the WiscWeb. He's like the WiscWeb like pup.
Yeah. Hello. Hello, buddy. Yep.
Whisk
Okay.
Watson. Good. So good.